All right, welcome back to Just Another Solar Podcast with Luke Beattie, that's me, and Jess MacPherson. How are you, Jess?
I'm good, mate. I'm actually I'm undercover. I'm in plain clothes today. No, I'm doing a leadership conference for Surf Lifesaving, but they've let me duck out to do my very important industry podcast.
So
So
this falls under El Capitano.
yeah, correct. I've pulled rank. Um,
Oh, very good. And industry legend Nigel Morris, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. Good to see everyone again. Good to be back.
Good to be back, and I just got back home from China less than an hour ago, so
My goodness.
I've had a fantastic week there, catching up with partners and all the usual stuff. However, the flight out of Shanghai was delayed, so I flew out at 1:30 this morning, and that meant that we had to race across half of Singapore, or Changi Airport, jump on a train, and then our gate was at the far end of that terminal.
Oof.
So we ran and we ran and we ran, and then here I am.
Here you are. Well done. Well
Good to be
done.
back.
how much sleep are we talking, Luke?
Very, very little. Good thing we don't have video. Oh, wait a second.
Wait a second. Yeah.
We do now. That's right. So, Nige, how's it going at the Smart Energy Council? You've been there for a few weeks now.
Yeah, a few weeks under my belt, mate. I'm loving it. I'm really loving it. I mean, I guess in the shortest possible version I can give you is that there is so much going on under the hood of the Smart Energy Council that it's taken me 3 weeks, and I'm still learning something new that we do or we can offer, or some way we can support industry every single day. That would be the first point. There's a lot going on in there. Secondly, it's like drinking from a fire hose. The incredible amount of information that comes to us from the highest levels, right down to, installers calling me, going, "Hey, Nige, did you know about this, or did you know about that, or I could use your help on this, or I could use your help on that." So it's just
So you're a lightning rod. You're a lightning.
I'm just a receptacle for a fire hose of information, mate. That's all I am. And then the other one that actually really blew me away is the incredible people that the Smart Energy's assembled. Just a vast array of amazing people. And so, when you have people just coming at you going, "Hey, I thought you might be interested to know that we're doing this because we think it'll help you in your thing that you're doing over there. So we've done it. Is that okay? Have a quick look." And then 10 seconds later, there's someone else coming. I did a webinar the other day and they went, "Here's your script." And I went, "No one's ever given me a script for a webinar before. This is unprecedented."
How long did you stick to that script there, Nige? I feel like
pretty loose. But it helped me helped me not spend time on those things, right? It helped me just jump in at the last minute and go, right, I can see the run sheet, I can see what I have to do, here's the key points I have to hit, and then I can dance around that. So it actually just it's in many ways it's an incredibly efficient operation because they've just got this menagerie of people doing all these different things. So yeah, really loving it.
Oh, that's good to hear. Now, it's all about batteries at the moment. We know that. There was the announcement that there's over 70,000 installs now, but that's grown so quickly that that'd be well outdated by now.
I've got data.
In China, yes. Well, I'll request it shortly, but an interesting thing I saw this week was one of our partners they're one of the largest cylindrical cell manufacturers in the world. And we went to their factory and there's an enormous level of automation, of course, and all of the checks and balances and safety and capacity testing and impedance testing at every step, which I found super impressive. But the point I was going to is that another company we went to visit were exclusively a cabinet manufacturer. So they did all sorts of server outdoor cabinets for batteries, for servers, for telecommunications.
Oh, I thought you meant like kitchen cupboards. Okay, battery cabinets. We're catching up now.
Until about 3 years ago. And now they're an ESS and a BESS manufacturer.
Oh, wow.
So they still make their own. They've got all the, a couple of factories building the cabinets, but now they're also into batteries. full on. So they've just totally evolved into a different company. So it's all about batteries, but here in Australia, Nige, give us the stats.
Well, I have to hand it to Tristan Edis, who called me the other day, actually, for a big chat about what they think is going on, and he had all the latest data. We have peaked at 1,700 batteries a day. So we were talking about 1,000. There's been several at 1,700, and it's been interesting. The trend was kind of, hovering around 1,000, 1,200 and sort of bouncing around there. And then it seems like once supply got rolling and everyone got their act together, it started to ramp and it got up to that sort of 14, 15, 16, 1,700 a day with a peak of about 1,710, in fact. And so we had a big chat about, is that going to continue? What do we think it's going to do? Tristan's always really on the money with that stuff. 1.2 gigawatt hours installed. Remarkable.
Amazing.
Remarkable.
That's based on STC jobs claimed.
Correct.
Is that right, Nige?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, that's STC data.
That's phenomenal. And even Audi's getting in on the act.
Yeah.
Yes, Audi's getting in on the act. My shout out is for Lauren Seconti and the lovely people at the Solar Sidekicks podcast. But Lauren and I had a big old chat about it, and surprising absolutely no one. Like, the packages are pretty garbage. So it was like a 6 or a 10 kilowatt system, and it was like a 10 or a 20 kilowatt hour battery. But all of this
when you say garbage, though, are you talking about the equipment? Are you talking about the price? What are you talking about?
All of it. All of it. Like, I think I don't have a highlight. I don't have a good thing to say about it, which I think, again, surprises no one. But what I was particularly bothered by, and the majority of our conversation, was the offer to installers. I don't know whether I should or shouldn't say how much it was. I think it's been I think you could find it quite easily, but granted to say that it's not something you could make money off of if you're doing things properly. There's no way that reputable people who are running good businesses and taking care of their people and giving them enough time would be able to make a job like that work.
So you're saying that the installer rates are low?
Yeah, the rate that they're offering installers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, coming back to the equipment, my homework, I haven't had a good look. I've been on the road this week, but what I saw on the website is that the equipment seems to be white labelled. Now, I don't know if that's because they have their own solution or white labelled solution, or whether they're using a whole range of solutions. So it's quite ambiguous on their website.
Yeah, so I think it's called Akai Energy is how they're like labeling it.
Oh, we did talk about this. The
Yes.
cassette manufacturers.
Yeah.
Oh, Akai.
Akai, sorry.
Oh,
yes.
really?
And they're including, for your convenience, everything is pre-labeled and all the cable is included, and the rail is pre-cut. So you better hope that all the panels will fit perfectly to whatever they've decided it's pre-cut to. But it's all done for you. It's so convenient.
It's about time someone did solar cookie cutter.
Wow.
Yeah, pre-stickered, because that's the thing that really kills the jobs, is the time you take putting the stickers on. So
I'm gonna take my hat off to Audi that they've got the stickers worked out. They must have done the course from Southwell Solar training.
Yeah, well, I don't know if the stickers are right. I just know that they're on there, so it remains to be seen.
So, Jess, what's your prediction? I mean, their prices are sharp as. It looks like a good deal on the surface, and chatting with my chiropractor this week, he went, solar, batteries, what do I do? Where do I go, I saw Aldi have got this cheap deal. That looks pretty cheap. I'll just do that, it's not going to last. It's going to fail. Not going to get installed.
It's going to give us it's going to give us a lot of service work to do, I think, in the future. Is the sad, I don't know, I think it's just one of those ones where, like, it's going to put a lot of people in really awkward positions, is the truth of the matter. And the conversation we were having around, so what do you suggest in terms, like, what would they suggest in terms of installers being able to do this? I'll just do a couple a day, or, it'll just all work out. And it's not practical. It's not realistic. So
maybe while all of the installers from top to bottom and everyone's been inundated with leads and with installs of batteries due to the rebate and the initial flurry, it's probably going to be harder to get installers at that rate. But if we do see some sort of levelisation of the install of batteries and it does peter out a little bit, maybe people will consider it. So a question I'm going to ask, do we want these larger players who are going to commoditise it to not be around, or do we want them to be installing good gear, doing it well, paying install as well?
Oh, what a great question.
Very good question. I don't know.
Tell you
I
what,
think like, oh, sorry, Carl.
I was going to say...
wait, can I just say, Karl Jensen just entered, so g'day, Karl. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yeah, look, I ran into a woman at the gym the other night. She just got herself an electric car and her husband's a Sparky, and he's complaining that it's costing a fortune to run it. And I said, that's surely not the case. You've got plenty of free deals, 8 cents a kilowatt hour. And she says, no, we signed up to a Nectar deal 12 months ago, and we're stuck in that deal for the next decade.
Oh.
Very expensive if you just bought an electric car and your energy consumption doubled, right? So those big players, that's the risk, right? That we're stuck into something that we, don't understand in a few years' time.
So all this talk of new entrants into the market, new companies coming into the market every second day, blah, blah, blah. We're also seeing, just the real world hitting us right now with recalls. I actually pinged Jess the other day because Jess very kindly helped out an old family friend of mine. He added some more Tesla batteries a while back. Jess helped him do a big upgrade, and I went, "Oh, there's a recall on Teslas. Is he affected?" Luckily, Jess, just went, "Don't worry, it's all good.
Yeah.
We're all sorted. Everything's cool." So Yacht's in good shape, but there's also another big name brand out there, GoodWe, who've got a recall. That's mostly a software patch, it appears, and that's kind of turned into. I saw some announcement from them that they'd pushed out a whole lot of updates, so that one's kind of out there. But recalls are real.
I think with that GoodWe one though, there was the official recall that went out, and then before people look at the details, there was a whole lot of flutter online around. Look at this, another recall. I told you this, I told you that. And then when you read the actual recall, it's just around that firmware update. So pretty interesting to see that. But the interesting fact I heard about the Tesla recall was that they had discharged the batteries and then they disabled the batteries and put the alert in place first.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So
the affected batteries?
Yeah. So at first, without sort of more information to go on, it seemed like more of like a random computer glitch that batteries are being completely discharged. But of course, like we're talking completely discharged, like proper 0%, not customer sees 0%, like proper actually discharged, all the actual reserve margin. So, you already know that they're replacement units essentially, but especially for something like this. But then it turned out, once they did the proper announcement, that it was a batch of third-party manufactured cells. The batch was between, I think it was 2020 and 2022, and it's not every battery from that time period. It's a selection of those batteries. And if you have, if your customers are online and things like that, you are able to be quite proactive about it. So we've installed well over 1,000 Powerwall units. We did a celebration for our 1,000 late last year. So quite a few since then. I guess that's Powerwall 3s as well. But all of this to say, we had about 40-ish, something like that. It's like,
so
it's
correct me if I'm wrong though,
number.
Jess.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the warranty conditions is to be internet connected.
Yeah,
is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
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 So this is demonstrates why you'd have a requirement like that, I suppose.
Totally. And I think, most especially, the tricky thing is for people who are installed by a company that's no longer around. And we're certainly doing a lot more warranty work for Tesla than just our own. And I'm sure there's other service partners and then they have their own service team. And I've seen a lot of flack given to Tesla about this. And I know that's a very common product, but you got to kind of hand it to them for being on the front foot. They've been very proactive and very transparent, I think, as far as these things go. But it was a pretty...
I agree, and I love the fact that they just reached in and went, we think there's a problem. Let's just turn the battery off. Let's discharge it. Let's isolate. Let's minimize the risk before we do anything else.
Yeah.
Just make that thing safe.
There is those pictures of the two houses at the guy's garage that burnt down in South Australia, though, yeah?
Well,
It's not like nothing happened.
his Powerwall was venting flame, and it's scary. Like, it's very scary. But
Burn his garage down. Burn his cars.
Wow.
And like that, the language in the notice is very clear about that. It's not like obfuscate. It's quite transparent, I think. So, but it has led to a lot of people who aren't affected, being worried, and that's just more inquiries on the pile of already very busy people as well. So that's, I think, worth noting as well.
Definitely a problem if you're a Powerwall installer and you're out there making several $1,000s out of a new installation, and you can't do new installations because you've got 50 Powerwalls to swap out, and Tesla doesn't pay the same sort of money as what you're making out of a new job. So all of a sudden it's actually quite difficult to do the work because everyone's booked out till after Christmas, and now we've got a whole pile of Powerwalls to go and swap and still look after those existing customers.
And law of averages say that we're going to see more issues because of the amount of batteries being installed. So in 2 to 3 years' time, when we see that from some of the new entrants and brands, are we going to see them be able to remotely discharge and shut down by serial the batteries that are affected by their recalls? Yeah. So you can say what you want about Tesla. I reckon in terms of a recall, identifying an issue and dealing with it, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, they've done a great job.
And we've already started replacing, so it's been pretty fast as well.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I'm more worried about some of the side issues. My picture of the week was one that I saw on My Energy Efficient Electric Home, I think, which was someone who got pinged for not putting a fireproof backing behind a battery, and then came back with what looked like a trailer load of broken asbestos sheet and jammed it behind the battery. Just all these, literally just broken pieces of asbestos sheet. It was just the most ugly, horrendous thing you've ever seen in your life. And the guy came back and said, yeah, there you go, it's done. So, those soft issues as well, right?
All right, we should introduce our guest who's been waiting patiently. So I was actually fortunate to share the stage with this guest, as were you, Nigel, at the Smart Energy Queensland gig. So Katie Tebbatt is the General Manager at EcoVantage, and got to hear her speak there, and immediately after I heard her presentation, I said, Katie, you need to come on the podcast. And here you are at very short notice. Thank you, Katie. Welcome.
Lovely to be here. Thanks, Luke.
As a starting point, can you just go into a brief about who EcoVantage are and what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So EcoVantage is essentially a certificate provider. We work across all Australian programs, whether that's your federal programs, namely your battery STCs, solar STCs, that we're seeing a massive uplift in at the moment. But then we go to our state-based schemes as well across Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, and then we step into our commercial territory within those state schemes, and then your Australian carbon credit units or your ACCUs on a federal level as well. So we generally work across both installers and end users as well, depending on the scale of what the upgrade is. Your Resi to SME, that's normally directly with the installer. Your CNI is directly with the end user. And half of our business is focused on deemed certificates, where we're verifying that things actually happened and they happened right, and then claiming the certificates based on that and paying that out to the installer. And then the other half is verifying the energy savings on site with an end user to go, have you actually saved that electricity and gas? We go through all the modelling process, and then it results in the same thing, certificates at the end of the day, and then they go to the end user.
So I saw on your website, Katie, that you guys have saved 11 million kilograms of CO2. That's pretty impressive. Big number.
We have indeed. We hit that about 2 months ago. So we had a goal initially of 10 million tonnes by 2025. So we actually hit the 10 million earlier in 2024. So it was about a year ahead of schedule, which was really exciting.
So it's 10 million tonnes, not 10 million kilos. That's a lot.
Tonnes.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
So cool. And you mentioned compliance. Now, so our listeners are mostly in solar and batteries from small scale commercial manufacturers, that sort of thing. But also, you're involved with the corporates, with the carbon reduction and emissions reduction and ESG compliance and all that sort of thing. But coming back to compliance in the context of battery installs under the federal scheme, what are you seeing out there?
Compliance is often a word that we get people very scared of. We're obviously in the business of making things compliant and making sure they meet proper standards. As soon as we mention compliance to a whole heap of people, they tend to think we're the boogeyman in some respect. We're here to help you be compliant, essentially. What we're seeing in market at the moment is a lot of installers that are really, really dedicated to making sure that the customers receive the best quality product, the best quality install, and upskilling through the process as we're seeing this massive battery rollout. Unfortunately, we're also seeing quite a bit of the market with a couple of examples of installs that are questionable at best. And you're just wondering what's going to happen for this consumer or this homeowner in, say, 3 to 5 years, maybe even sooner than that.
That's very
when
diplomatic of
the
you,
existing
Katie.
companies are probably when they're not going to be around. And then you get these people that have these batteries and these solar systems that aren't installed properly, etc. But I think the CER's audit regime is doing a great job at that from what we're seeing. Their ability to go directly to the installer and give feedback to the installer and rectification works makes a massive difference, because we don't see that in South Australia, New South Wales or Victoria under your state programs. It all goes through us and then it goes to the installer, whereas the fact that the CER can go directly to the installer when they see something that might be a bit shady or a bit amiss makes a massive difference.
I think my new favourite is air conditioning type ducts. Turns out they're great size if you're a mouse. And there's always lovely food, which is insulation off the cables that's apparently got vegetable oils in it, and they love eating it. So, yeah, fantastic. That type of duct, have to block the ends with expanding foam. Well, expanding foam's no good with cables either, but have to do something to stop the mice wanting to live there. Great place to build a house and raise a family.
It is. That one actually only came onto my radar late last week. It was the first time I'd really gone down that path, but it's a really common issue.
Look, it's a common issue. I know someone that had a 200 series Land Cruiser that was written off. They couldn't fix it. Put new wiring harnesses in it. There was a heap of damage done by a family of mice or rats or whatever, and ultimately wrote the car off.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, do a lot of damage. Rats and mice do a lot of damage, but yeah, they love eating cables. They just love it. It's great.
I was just going to say I had an NBN upgrade this week as well, and Igor, God bless him, came out and did his thing, and got me cable into the house, fiber optic into the house, which was awesome. And he was very proudly showing off the quality of his workmanship, which in the solar industry, there is no way it would pass muster. Absolutely no way. It was horrendous, and I just went, "Yeah, thanks, Igor. Great." Okay,
I love that you had another tech at your house, Nige, like when you had a tradie recently, and you're the guy with the hands behind the back, just watching over his shoulder.
The meter guy. Yeah.
Breath on the neck.
No, I left Igor alone. I was actually in the middle of a webinar, believe it or not, when they were doing the changeover. So I had to get on my phone and do my hotspot thing. And then I came out and I said, "How are you going?" And he went, "Yeah, look at this awesome conduit job." And I plugged the end of the conduit up. It's pointing directly up, but it's okay. It's full of silicon. The water will never get in. And then I was just looking at it going, "This is just a water pipe. You've just filled my NBN cable with water. Thanks, mate."
Do you have a favorite compliance issue, Katie? Like one that every time you see it, you just go, "Come on, guys!" Like,
yeah, scanning serial numbers. You'd be surprised at how often we get that come up. Scanning the serial number sheet that comes with your box is really, really common. You need to scan the serial number on the actual panel or the actual product. I probably see that come up about 3 times a week at the moment. Is that serial numbers? They're either not scanned properly, like the photos are all blurry and there's just been a quick move on, or they're scanned off of the actual sheet. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but
It's
probably
the most
my least
common one.
favorite.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a simple one to fix, right? It's like, come on, guys.
It's a super, super simple one.
What does it look like internally for your compliance team? And you mentioned that the CER is dealing directly with installers, but I suppose you have some sort of responsibility or even liability in that area. So how do you manage that within your team?
Yeah, so we have a responsibility and a liability over the paperwork that we're submitting to the CER in terms of the actual install quality and standards. If we see any glaring issues and we see something that's dangerous, we pull it up immediately. But as far as, your nitty-gritty standards, that's dealt directly with the CER and the installer. So when we see things come through, like your serial numbers not being scanned quite right, we need to pull that up. And normally we just give the installer a call, have a chat, see if they understand it, guide them on how to do it next time, or how they need to correct this install or something like that. But from our team's perspective, we have it fed into our compliance software. And so when we're looking at a job on the back end, we need to be checking all these things and doing a desktop review. And normally it's pretty simple because each job is fairly similar. But when you have issues like this that come up, it just delays the job passing and then in turn delays payment as well. So it's your super simple stuff that is our focus to get right with the installers and to understand how their process works so they can get it right so that their payments aren't being delayed, because that's probably one of the biggest pain points that we see. So we want to prevent that instead of, just letting it happen for a number of jobs. If they've got an install tomorrow and they do the same thing, and we could have stopped that with a phone call, that's kind of where we come from.
You must have seen a massive spike in that work since the federal battery rebate started.
Yeah, it was a huge spike. It was actually a really interesting transition, though, because we were quite heavily involved in, dare I say it, the New South Wales PDRS, which was, like I was talking about before, your state regulators, they don't go directly to the installer for your install standards. They went to your accredited providers. So that's where we had a liability on us to make sure that things were installed correctly. And then transitioning, there was an uplift in that. There was obviously you die off of that pretty quickly. And then there's been a huge uplift in both your solar and battery, but definitely your batteries with this new rebate.
And the PDRS no longer has batteries in it. Is that correct? But there are still some of the other schemes that you would still be dealing with?
Yeah, definitely. So PDRS, they've suspended that one until further notice. So they haven't cut it out of the scheme entirely. There's rumours of their intention to expand that more to your commercial space in future, but I think from their perspective, they're probably just going to see how your federal rebate plays out first before going down that route. But we still deal with batteries in South Australia. You have VPP rebates in South Australia, which
Rats
are pretty
we
attractive
love.
for the end user. They're end user claimed, which is pretty decent. It means that the end user can go in and that homeowner can claim their rebate and they're not waiting on an installer and installer's not having to cash flow it, for example. And then the majority of what we deal with other than that is in Victoria on your commercial scale, so anything over about 100 kilowatts.
And Katie, do you play in WA as well?
No, we don't at the moment.
Ah, yeah, because I'm interested. I heard a rumor, and Beattie, you might know the answer to this, but I heard a rumor that the state-based rebate, which also requires a mandatory connection to the Synergy VPP, has had a very, very low take-up rate, and it's been a bit awful. What can you tell us about that?
Anyone?
Yep,
Nothing?
I'll jump in there. I think
That's
I don't think this is consumer driven. I think that the confidence was lost with industry. And on balance, they decided that for a $1,300 rebate, when the customer's already getting the cheap home batteries program rebate, was too much work and not enough payoff and not enough value for their customers. So
Too hard.
I
Too
believe
hard.
a
Just
lot
let
of
it
the
go.
a lot of the WA companies not only don't offer it for their customers, they actively encourage
Discourage
them
it.
not to go for it, discourage it. Exactly.
It's a lot
Wow.
to explain to a customer. Like reps, I think we have an easier out because there's at least a few options that people can take that have no lock-in period. So it's very easy to say to a customer, look, just try this. If you don't like it, there's no worries at all. Like you've already got your money back from the government. If you fall in love with it, even better. And the people who are more interested, you can go into more depth with them about the ins and outs of Amber or VPP with Origin Loop or whatever, whichever option you're recommending. But like it's a lot to explain, especially when you're trying not to confuse your customer. You want them to feel confident in what they're buying and how it's going to work. And there's a lot of risk and volatility in what you're trying to explain. It's not very appealing to a customer unless the carrot is a nice little, incentive. So I totally see why people would be turned off by that.
I'm really interested in this issue because bouncing around Parliament in week one, when I joined the Smart Energy Council, it was clear that the feds really love the idea of VPPs. They really love what it does at a national and a federal level for energy security. They really love that it creates this aggregated energy storage, and we've got 1.7 gigawatt hours now, or whatever it was, 1.2 gigawatt hours. That's a power station's worth of bloody capability and reserve and everything else that we need. And I was reading today that someone was moaning that they want to get some more spinning inertia, and they've got to wait 2 years to get some synchronous condensers. How does a synchronous condenser take 2 years to buy? And they cost, a bazillion dollars or whatever. And it's like, get some batteries, man. Get some batteries. It's not that hard. Call GoodWe. They've got some on the shelf. It's easy. It's a really, but the feds are really focused in on this issue of centralized aggregation, and VPP is the mechanism that they really seem super keen on.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're keen to
look at-
get stuck into turning on and off heat pumps as well. And ultimately, we don't even see it as a big load. For anyone that's actually got a heat pump, it doesn't use anything, so it's not a big deal. And the opportunity for it to do something is really quite small. But the other problem with the VPP, or the other problem from government's perspective, it's the battery being there in the first place is still hiding those loads. So it is doing something even without the VPP, that load's disappearing off the grid in peak time. So maybe the net benefit is quite small.
Yeah. Katie, in your role, in your company doing the trading and focusing on that, is VPP, a confusing aggravation to what you guys do, or does it just fit in like another part of the puzzle? How does VPP fit in for you guys?
I think South Australia is a really good example of how a VPP can be done really well. It's to the point where a person can sign up to a VPP, understand it, and go and claim it themselves. Like what Jess was saying before, it gets really complex to try and explain to a consumer in WA and some of your other programs exactly how it works. South Australia is pretty straightforward. The amount of people that we get coming to us saying, hey, I installed a battery a little while ago, my installer put a link on my proposal that said I could claim some money through it. I filled in your form online. Is that all I need to do? We go, yeah, you're done. That's it. And they're
Give
like,
me my
okay,
money.
that's wonderful. And then they get paid. Whereas there's some other programs which aren't as great. So if you look at your New South Wales program, the compliance is still really complex. It's your PDRS. It's a baby version of what your battery compliance was. So it's still quite a lot of work. It can be consumer-led, but it also can be installer-led. It sits in this middle ground. It's a dual claim, so you claim some now, you claim some later, and it's not quite enough to make it worth it. And then you add in there the volatility of the per price. And like from our perspective, we're not involved in that program because for our installers, it's not worth it for them to go through those hurdles.
How did South Australia get so clever?
It's interesting. All of these things can change in the blink of an eye. A little birdie told me this week that a major energy retailer is going to be rolling out time of use feed-in tariffs on the East Coast, pretty similar to the way it happens in Western Australia, where they get 10 cents after 3 p.m. And of course, if I was an energy retailer and someone all of a sudden put 10 cents out there instead of 1 cent, then everybody that's got a battery that's got surplus energy is going to dump it to the grid every afternoon. And you do the same thing as a VPP without actually having to orchestrate it yourself. You just do it with a price signal instead.
I thought something really interesting in what Katie was saying there as well is like burden on who, because I think it's adding another thing. Like Nigel said it when we first started talking about this battery rebate, like the difference between solar and battery customers, like, when it's doing most of your energy supply, customers way more on their app and they care a lot more when it's not working, right? And I think it's an important thing to keep in mind as a business, like, are you doing tech support for the VPP now when your customers are calling up and saying my battery's not working and it's just VPP?
Yeah, you are.
Oh, you
Yeah,
are.
you are.
100% you are. And that's a big burden on your business. So you've got to kind of weigh that up as well, at how much responsibility you are going to take for that.
Well, it's all right, Jess, because all of the solar installers out there are building that into their margin builds. So they've got...
Sure.
All of them have already accounted for the fact they're going to have to go back out to site and answer the phone and help customers out. I'm sure that's the case anyway. Everyone. So an interesting one I heard in the last week is that there's a fairly reasonable size solar retailer out there at the moment saying, as part of their pitch, that we are estimating that the cheaper home batteries program is going to be fully done in March or April next year.
Oh.
Is that a bit disingenuous? Is that a bit disingenuous, or
so? 100% fucking disingenuous. It's bullshit.
Let's not put some fluff around that, mate. Just smack him in the face with it.
Really?
Yeah, no, that's bullshit. It is. It's unlimited, bullshit. Right? Yeah.
It's uncapped. It's been uncapped since the beginning. It'll be fine. Relax. It'll go through some ups and downs, and the clearinghouse has had some challenges. We had a big webinar the other day with the CER about the CER's processes and getting the clearinghouse clearing and getting that cash flow running. So, but, it was always going to be a schmozzle when a program takes off at this rate and, things just explode out of the blocks. It was always going to be like that. So, no big surprises there. But they've got that process in place. They're moving the certificates through the clearinghouse, and arguably it's the most successful program that the country's ever seen. I mean, putting 1.2 gigawatt hours of storage in and stimulating, it's like the solar rebate. It's like when we had $8,000 for the solar rebate, right? Everyone went berserk, and it was just like, more solar.
I disagree, Nigel. I disagree.
Why?
We got it all wrong. The fossil fuel industry gets $500 a second. It's about $100 billion a year. So $2.3 billion for cheaper home batteries. Grand scheme of things, it's fuck all. We should be in the fossil fuel industry if it's about money.
Well,
those guys are
sure, but the news stories that were coming through today, where there was a whole bunch of forecasts about how we're eating their lunch, Karl. We're taking away all this volatility for them. We're changing the dynamics in the market for them.
I'm not
hedging contracts. Their hedging contracts are all up to shit now because, batteries taking the edge off it. We've already seen the death of the market for not arbitrage, but the spot market for frequency control.
FCAS.
Right? That's basically FCAS. Thank you. FCAS market's basically gone now. Yeah, it's got who knew? A year and a half, 2 years, 3 years ago, everyone would have went, no, FCAS is going to last forever. Nothing's going to change.
Pretty sure listeners of the podcast going back 2 or 3 years would have heard about diminishing returns for FCAS.
Yeah, look, FCAS was a thing. That's where Tesla, managed to get their foot in the door in South Australia, and of course, Tesla had their own VPP, and whilst not discharging the batteries massively, they were able to make their money in that FCAS space
Well,
and give
very
people a great
interesting.
subsidy.
Very interesting you brought that up, actually. I should have mentioned it, but the Tesla Energy Plan has formally ended as well. So, and I will say, as a heads up, if it's relevant to anyone, the plan that they're putting people onto, so Energy Locals, who ran the retailer side of that, the new plan is what's a political way to say garbage? Like it's really rough, really high rates, no feed-in tariff, and so they're just hoping you don't notice and you roll onto it.
The lazy tax. That's called the
Yes,
lazy tax.
yeah,
Like when insurance premiums go up by 30% and the companies just factor in that a lot of people just won't change it. They'll
yeah.
just sit there because they don't change it. Katie, do we need to be planning for a change of career into the fossil fuel industry, as Karl says?
No, absolutely not. We see it's really with the batteries, it's an interesting trend to watch where the news articles come from. And it has a lot to do with what stage the clearinghouse is in, whether it's in surplus or deficit. If you watch, as soon as the clearinghouse goes into surplus, which is fairly natural, it's going to do from time to time, you start seeing articles where people go, it's being exhausted, there's too many batteries being installed, this is, a one hit and then it's going to be done, it's going to burn out soon. And then as soon as it goes into deficit, you go, uptake's waning, it's not as high as we thought it was going to be, this isn't going to be around for as long. And you have these really two ends of the spectrum that we find with it. And it's based on the clearinghouse, which is naturally going to go in and out of deficit as there's government purchases, as you come up to your quarterly surrender windows for STCs, and it's going to change year to year. For example, next year we might have a lower small scale technology percentage, or STP, which is a volume of STCs you need against the target. And if that's lowered, then chances are we're going to see the clearinghouse in surplus more often, even with your government purchases of batteries. That'll just keep it at where it was going to be with solar alone. So I think we don't transition out of this industry just yet. I'm not planning on a career change.
We still have to
Guys,
fight every day to get that 82% renewables by 2030. There's no getting past it. That's
Exactly.
still
It's true.
a reach, whilst various people in government say that, yep, we're going to get there. I don't think it's going to be smooth sailing to get there. It's absolutely going to be hard work. We're still going to have to work really hard to get there.
Well, one thing we've been talking about lately is your LRET with your LGCs for your larger scale solar. I don't know if any of you guys have seen LGC pricing lately, but it's pretty abysmal. They're at $10 this week. If we go back a year ago, they were at 40 something dollars. So the case for CNI solar especially has gone down significantly, and that's a massive part of us reaching that 82% renewables. So while there's forecasts saying it might be temporary, it might be more long term, the LGC market's having a massive impact on that space. We've seen uptake be fairly hampered in the commercial space, just because, again, you can't rely on that market.
So tell me then, apart from cost reduction, you've got that whole ESG piece and carbon reduction for some of the larger companies particularly, but even SMEs. So are you seeing any change in that trend for more companies want to be part of it and want to do something and have internal policies, or is that just constant?
There's more companies that want to be a part of it. We're definitely seeing companies who were potentially weighing up green power or surrendering LGCs use LGCs with the price that they're at as a cheap scope 2 offset for their emissions. So we've seen an uplift in that. We have seen a couple of companies decide not to put solar on and instead offset their consumption using cheap offsets, which LGCs are at the moment. But the other thing that we've seen with LGCs is that, again, they're a really big part of the business case for CNI. And when they're at the value that they're at with only a couple of years left and then there's uncertainty about what's left, there's then the question of, do we bother creating them? Do we bother registering them? And there's generally a threshold which just gets a little bit higher. So where it was pretty lucrative to create LGCs for a 100 kilowatt system a couple of years ago, generally we're seeing that threshold be around 150, 200, 250 kilowatts at the moment. And some companies are going, all right, well, if it wasn't going to be that much of an income from LGCs anyway, we may as well surrender them and claim the renewable energy benefit and everything like that. But the LGC market in itself, one of the contributing factors for it being so low is that there's a far lower uptake of voluntary surrendering these certificates towards those climate or renewable energy targets than was forecast. So we were forecast this year to be at about 19 to 20 million LGCs be surrendered per annum against the targets, and we're sitting at about 11 from a forecast.
So just to explain that to people
Wow.
who don't understand it, that means that we have liable entities, so companies that are required to buy these certificates or offset these, surrender these certificates, whereas the voluntary one is companies that don't have any requirement to do it except for their own drive or their own policies. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So it's your voluntary one where we're seeing far lower uptake than was anticipated. Your mandatory stays the same. It's 33 million every year. That does not change. But as you're creating more of these certificates year on year, as more systems come online, you're getting a bigger market surplus that comes in each year above that 33 million. So if you have enough companies that are going, we're going to buy these LGCs and surrender them, so we can say that we're using 50% renewable energy or 100% renewable energy for whatever reason. Maybe they don't have the capital to put towards a renewable energy source. Maybe they don't have the roof space or the floor space for any other on-site generation. It's not keeping up. So supply is outstripping demand quite significantly, which is why we're seeing such low prices at the moment.
So for companies that want to be carbon neutral, carbon zero, carbon whatever, to have that offset, it's a good time to buy those certificates.
Put it into
Great time to buy. Perfect time.
Put it into language that Nigel and I can understand, Katie. Someone like Lion Nathan, they had a thing where you could have your solar system export energy and get beer credits.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's for the similar kind of thing.
I don't know if he kicked
Pretty
you in the
much.
guts there, Nigel, or if he's complimenting.
Yeah, was fair, probably.
Pretty much is you have these credits for every unit of power that solar is producing. Every megawatt hour is going to create one of these certificates. So if I have a solar system on my roof and I'm producing 10 megawatt hours and I create 10 of these certificates, these LGCs, I can then sell that to Luke. Luke, you have no solar, and conveniently you're consuming 10 megawatt hours a year for the podcast. Heavy podcast.
Yeah.
Um,
Lots of ChatGPT running for the
you can then-
podcast.
That was the carbon emission of my flights in the last 24 hours, actually. So
Yeah, there we go. You're using it to then offset that energy. And you're saying, now I've sold it to you, so I can't say that I'm using renewable energy from my solar. I can say that I have a solar system on my roof, but I can't say the energy that I'm using from it is renewable because I've sold that to you. Now you can say all of the energy that we're using to produce this podcast that's coming from the grid, it's renewable. So you can put that through your marketing, on your ESG reporting, and if you talk from an emissions language, you've reduced it.
That's an excellent point,
almost
Katie,
entirely.
that most installers and most people in the industry get totally wrong. And when people say to me, you've got shitloads of solar on your roof, and I say, yep, but the carbon emissions from driving my car and everything in my house, they're the same as the grid rate because I sold all of those certificates to somebody else. So they don't belong to me. I get some cheap energy, sure, but in terms of carbon emissions, no dice.
It could be. I was going to say, it gets really interesting because when we were talking before about installers having a heap to keep up with, this is one of those things that it's just another layer. And it depends what certificates you're using and what you're claiming. If you sell an LGC for your solar system, you can't claim that that energy is renewable that you're using anymore. But if you sell an STC for your system, you can claim that it's renewable for what you're using, and that's completely fine because they're two entirely different units. They represent two completely different things. which for when you're looking at your small businesses and your residential customers, normally it's not so much of a big deal. They want to say that they have solar on their roof, and that's completely fine. Residential consumers, they're not doing ESG reporting. But it's when you start to get into your commercial and your industrial end users that generally that's where we find we'll go with installers or with companies to their meetings with these customers or sit in on them on Teams or something like that and just go, we'll be your voice for anything ESG related behind you here. And then that way, I mean, we live and breathe this stuff. It's our job to keep up with it. It's a big job, but it's
So a
what we
couple of
do.
weeks ago, we made aluminium rail sexy, and Katie, here you are making certificates interesting, which it's a dry subject. It's a dry subject, but it underpins so much of our industry, right?
It does. It's a lot of policy. Making certificates interpretable is one thing.
Yeah.
Interesting, I won't claim to do.
No, you've done a great job.
Interesting. And I mean, the transparency is a really interesting one. I have debates with a couple of old friends regularly about, oh, you offset your flight, but your offset doesn't mean shit. You're still polluting. Don't fly. Get on your bike and go electric instead, and make sure you charge it off your solar or whatever.
Paddle,
it
get
is
a
interesting,
kayak.
the whole. Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of skepticism, right?
Yeah.
A whole
Look,
lot. Honestly, some of it's warranted.
yeah, absolutely. I'm skeptical. So I happened to do a bit of travelling around regional Victoria last week, and one particular person that I went to see had at least 500 solar panels in their yard that have yet to be recycled but ready to go. And ultimately, all of those panels have had STCs claimed on them out till 2030, and they're sitting in a pile. So we're counting those emissions savings, but they're gone. They're not there anymore. So we're counting them. If our numbers are inflated at the moment because there's all of those panels that are getting removed because we're upgrading systems and getting more efficient and so on.
Yep. Now, Katie, so you're general manager at EcoVantage, but offline, before we started, I found out that you come from Central Queensland. So how did you get from there to there?
It was a little bit of a fluke, to be honest. I grew up in central Queensland in ag, so we had cotton, macadamias, and cattle. And I was out there for the majority of my life. My dad does renovations and builds tiny homes, and he has a little bit of a passion for off-grid. Somehow that linked into EcoVantage, and I went, I'll have a chat to them. It sounds kind of interesting. I have no idea what it is, what they do. It was all completely new. As you can imagine, Central Queensland is quite heavily mining, and so anything green, good for the environment related is shunned out of the town very, very quickly.
We call them rednecks,
I was like, yeah, sounds exactly. I said, sure, sounds interesting. I'll have a chat. Worked remotely for a little bit from CQ. Absolutely fell in love with it, the industry, and the rest is kind of history.
And normally we ask a more personal question or a more personally focused question. So just wondering, you've been very busy at the moment. How do you balance it out with your life? So you're very busy professionally. How do you keep that balance outside of work?
It's really tough, to be honest. I think I'm a very, very strict routine-based person. To keep that balance, what I've found is that the routine just starts earlier in the day and extends a little bit later at night. But I've run my entire life, go to the gym, etc. Living by the coast makes it heaps easier to get outside, rather than being somewhere cold. But generally just really, really strict routine based. Not great all the time, but as much as possible.
You're in Victoria, yeah?
No, I'm in Sunshine Coast in Queensland.
Oh, I was going to say, because it's fucking freezing here in Melbourne.
No, we're not cold. We hit 30 degrees for the first time this year the other day.
Oh my God.
Awesome. Do you schedule your weekends in the same way you do your weekdays then? Or is that your time to just disconnect
Sundays
from
is
it?
Sundays is normally the time to just completely disconnect with that, from it, be with family, try to forget what I do for work. But yeah, generally Saturdays is pretty heavy schedule just to make sure that anything life related can fit in, because otherwise it just doesn't.
It's been interesting to chat with you. I agree with what Nigel said. You've taken something that's quite complex, and I won't say it's dry, but it's quite complex, and you've made it interesting and quite simple to understand. And yeah, I like that Nigel got piled in there with Karl, that we don't understand this shit. So talking in beers, and I know Karl does understand it, but yeah, we're going to wrap up shortly. What we normally do is just go around to everyone to give their last comments. So we'll start with you, Jess.
Yeah, my last comment is a massive shout out and thank you to Franklin WH. We installed one of their batteries at my mum's house last week, and she loves it. And she needs to use some more power, actually, because I'm starting to feel really guilty. She's still only using like 3 kilowatt hours a night, and I keep texting her and saying, I don't care what it is, you just need to turn something on, please. But you know, that's a really great position for her to be in. And I actually was a TA for the day. I got my hands on the tools, and I was able to keep up. So I think that's a testament to Franklin a little bit there as well. So yeah, that's me.
Nice one. And Karl.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Jess, that's a pretty common problem, and we're starting to see people sticking their hand up and saying, hey, I can't use all this power that I've signed up for, and it's cost me a lot of money. There isn't really a lot of options for us Victorians, because Amber here kind of sucks, but I did see some forecasts for the NEM out for the next couple of years, and it seems to be fairly stable at somewhere between $100 and $115 a megawatt hour, so that's 10 to 11.5 cents. That's amazingly cheap. It's spectacularly cheap energy for all of us in Australia, and we should all go out and buy an electric car.
There you go. And Nige.
I have to give I'm going to give 2 shout outs. I'm going to give a shout out to my old crew, the Catch Power Solar and Licks crew, who I really miss terribly. They've been very good and haven't been hassling me and ringing me, but I do stay in touch with that crew. 9 years was a long time to spend with them. You know, they're a big part of my life. So big shout out to all of them. But a bigger shout out to my boss, who was shadowing the Prime Minister and Minister Bowen in New York this week at around the UN events. You know, it's pretty wild to be part of an organisation that is at that level. And you know, he was in 3 or 4 different countries over the last couple of weeks, shadowing the PM and Bowen at a variety of different events, and staying right on the money with their announcements around climate targets and linking in globally with that. So, yeah, big shout outs.
Nice one. And Katie Tebbatt from EcoVantage, thanks again for coming on. Any last comments?
I think my only takeaway from this is that I think we all have a long career in this industry, and we probably don't need to move over to fossil fuels, at least just yet.
That's a mic drop. No, very good. Thanks again for coming on, and thanks to you for watching or listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share it around. There's been a little bit of a gap between the last few episodes, but we should be back to our normal frequency. So make sure you share it around and interact with it, and we'll catch you next time.